Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and I'm gonna be honest, I was not planning on filming a Duckbricks video in the next several weeks. I have video content to last me for months in advance, and because of that, I decided to take down every single one of my wall displays and actually consolidate them to be a lot better, neater, tighter, and more concise to allow myself to be able to put up even more stuff. Because of that, I'm gonna be honest, the basement is kind of a wreck right now. The LEGO collection has rarely ever been in more disarray than it is right now. There are parts all over the floor. Even in this one filming angle that I can achieve that actually looks like it's doing okay, you can literally see empty wall frames right behind me. Suffice to say, the basement is not in a filmable state, and to make matters worse, the Ninjago Destiny's Bounty has fallen from the ceiling. It's the first time anything I've hung has ever fallen, taking out a section of the city and smashing upon the ground. So, you better believe that if I am filming a Duckbricks video right now in the current state my collection is in, it's something really important. And unfortunately, it's not the good kind of important that Bionicle's coming back or something like that. No, unfortunately, this has to do with a change that Bricklink has made to their system that affects me, that affects a lot of LEGO fans, that affects a lot of you watching, and was actually brought to my attention by folks in the Duckbricks Discord. They pointed me to a video by another incredible LEGO YouTuber, RR Slugger, who kind of first covered this. That's how I learned about this, and I figured that it was kind of important to spread the word and maybe see if Bricklink would be willing to reverse their decision. So what exactly is this about? Well, Bricklink is the biggest online LEGO marketplace that exists. It is a site that has a full-on database full of every single LEGO piece, LEGO set, LEGO minifigure, even LEGO gear, LEGO books. Everything that has to do with LEGO is stored in Bricklink's database. It is the most complete source of information on everything to do with LEGO from the beginning of its history all the way up until now. It also happens to be a huge marketplace, and while that might be the primary function of Bricklink, is that people go on it to buy and sell. Even I myself have a Bricklink store, linked in the description below if you want to, get anything to support the channel. But no. Even I have a Bricklink store because Bricklink is amazing. It's a really good marketplace where you can buy and sell everything related to LEGO, but it's also a lot more than just a marketplace. You see, Bricklink is the one and only source of knowledge when it comes to the nitty-gritty intricacies of LEGO pieces and LEGO history. It is where they, again, keep a complete catalog of everything, and until now, that catalog has just been continuing to grow and grow. Now, for whatever reason, Bricklink has just announced a major update to the way that they will be storing pieces to make it such that certain pieces that are similar but not the same will be consolidated into one catalog listing. Now, the reason and justification they gave for this is because on the seller side of things and as a marketplace, it's a lot more complicated to try and figure out what is the difference between this part and this part that seem identical but are not actually identical. And for people listing items and for people buying items, they wanted to make it as simple as possible, so they're consolidating similar parts into one listing. However, this is a bad idea. I don't really understand why they are doing this for specific pieces, and to be fair, I understand it if there are very minute mold differences. It's still a little annoying. Like, I think it would still be better to have a catalog of here are all the times that LEGO has just remotely changed the mold in a single piece. But as long as the functionality is the same, whatever, I'll deal with it. The issue here, though, is that for many of these changes, the functionalities are not the same, and for some cases, the pieces are completely different. Like, one of the pieces is a 2x2 brick with a ratchet joint on it, and they are consolidating the ones with an axle hole running through and the ones without an axle hole running through. That is like a very clear functional difference between the two of them. You can stick an axle through one of them, and you can't do it on the other ones. Like those are two different pieces, but they're consolidating all of those into one listing to make it simpler for buying and selling, which I agree. It will make it simpler for buying and selling for people who might not be aware of the differences or super cognizant of it. But for folks like me or high affinity LEGO fans or people who have been following LEGO for a long time, this is kind of frustrating because what if I particularly needed the 2x2 brick with the ratchet joint connector that can go through axles, right? Like, what if a build I'm making requires axles to go through it? There are LEGO sets, like actual LEGO sets that require this. So if someone's piecing together a LEGO set and it's just one catalog listing of the brick with or without the axle hole, you could very easily not be able to build the set. Like, not even a mock. You might not be able to build the set without that functionality. So I think that's a big mistake. I'm a little bit confused, honestly, as to why Bricklink is doing this. And to give a brief history of what LEGO mold changes are, essentially sometimes LEGO will take an existing piece and tweak it for some reason or another. Sometimes these tweaks are very, very minor, such as making the dimensions just a little bit better to fit within system or changing the way the grooves on the underside of the piece work. And some of them are more major, like in the choice of another click hinge. It seems that click hinges for some reason are the ones being really affected here. They will just add more teeth to allow you to have more degrees of ratchet articulation. Those are different pieces. Like a 1x2 brick with a click hinge on it that allows you to click it in 3 different ways is different than one that allows you to click it in 5 different ways. Like, those are strictly different elements. But again, Bricklink is consolidating all of those. I want to do a brief recap of all of the pieces they're doing. There is a full list, which you can see down in the description below from the Bricklink kind of press kit detailing what these changes are, that goes through the entire list of all the changes being made. Some of them are more drastic than others, like there's one that has to do with the 1x4 bricks, and the ones in transparent clear have no tubes on the bottom, and the ones that are not transparent clear typically have tubes on the bottom. Back in the early 70s, 80s, in the early days of LEGO, they would mold these transparent clear bricks with tubes on the bottom. Those are all being consolidated into one listing. I don't like that, but that is a consolidation I can live with because that doesn't change the functionality of the bricks that much. It kind of changes it in some very specific mocking purposes, but that's the sort of thing where I'm like, okay, fine. If you really want to consolidate it, I guess that doesn't really change it from a historical point of view, from somebody who loves LEGO history and loves the fact that there is a database of all the different variations of pieces LEGO has made. I don't like that, but as a building perspective, maybe that's fine. What bothers me a lot more is when pieces are being consolidated that are strictly different pieces. Just because a piece looks the same as another piece from the outset doesn't mean they function the exact same way. But what Bricklink is doing is that they are just consolidating a lot of these categories into one. Now, I definitely would recommend check out the link in the description below, which goes through all of the changes Bricklink is making. I only got a chance to very briefly go through them, so this is definitely not the exhaustive list, but some of the differences are pretty big, and Bricklink already doesn't necessarily account for every single mold difference already. New Elementary, which is a really great LEGO site delving into the structure and like why LEGO parts are made the way they are, have made tons and tons of articles on specific LEGO pieces and the differences between them, and sometimes those are pretty big differences. And so Bricklink already doesn't catalog every single one, but the fact that they're consolidating it even more and consolidating pieces that are very, very different from another kind of negates the purpose of having a complete LEGO database, in my opinion. And I feel that this decision was made because of confusion amongst buyers and sellers. Buyers buying a 2x2 brick with a click joint on it might not care about an axle hole running through or not, or might not care about the number of teeth clicking on it. And then sellers, when they're listing the piece, see 5 different options for it and don't know what to list it under because maybe they're just not paying that close attention to the part itself. So from a buying and selling perspective, it makes sense. But from a database perspective and for a LEGO archiving perspective, it just doesn't make any sense to consolidate them. And even from a buying perspective, one of the most annoying things when you're buying like a lot of Bricklink parts is that if you wanted to buy one particular part and either the seller messed up or Bricklink didn't even list them as separate, and you get like a hodgepodge of different pieces. The big example here is that right now, the way that slopes are categorized in Bricklink is they have some that are rough textured and some that are smooth textured. So if you're making a house with a roof, you want all of them to be the same texture and consistency. But if you order from Bricklink, which right now they are separate listings, it's pretty often for sellers to mess up and give you a smooth one instead of a kind of a textured one, or a textured one instead of smooth. But now that those categories are being consolidated, it is not only very possible that those will get mixed, but it is inevitable that if I want to order 100 slopes for a gigantic roof for a house, I may get a random hodgepodge of textured and smooth. Like the smooth ones are quite shiny, they stand out compared to textured, and that's a very big difference. Like those are 2 very differently aesthetically looking pieces. They might be physically looking the same, but aesthetically speaking, the texture of them makes a big difference. This is already a problem that happens when you're a buyer on Bricklink and want to get only one of one specific type, and the problem is just going to not become a problem, it's going to become the norm. It's going to be exacerbated because sellers are going to have to consolidate their inventories for these types of pieces. So all that to say, what would I recommend that you as LEGO fans, you as fans of Bricklink, or as fans of LEGO archiving do? Personally, I would never ever advocate for people to harass Bricklink or to message them or anything like that. I definitely don't think that's the way this should be done. I really am very, very in awe of the Bricklink team for being a very small team and managing something this big and handling a lot of issues very well. Very recently, there was a Bricklink hacking incident and the team was working around the clock to bring it back online. And I really commend that. Like, the Bricklink team is awesome. I've even attended some of their panels in person at LEGO conventions, and that's how I know that this decision was probably made, just benefit of the doubt. I'm guessing it was made because they didn't really, or maybe they didn't really think of the ramifications behind it, or I think they didn't think that people would care that much that these would be consolidated, and we're really trying to genuinely make it a better marketplace. And I totally understand that. So please be kind, do not harass the Bricklink team about this. If you do decide to communicate with them, be kind in your communications and just kind of explain nicely that maybe this isn't something they should be doing. But I think maybe the best way to do it is just to spread the word, get it up on social media, and maybe just make it a clear point on social media and publicly that this is a change that we do not want to see made, if you agree with me. And if you don't agree with me and you want the change to be made, by all means go for it. And I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about this change, because this is just my opinion. Right? Like, this is just how I feel, and maybe you might agree with the Bricklink team and think that this consolidation should be made to make things simpler. And I'd love to hear your points of view as well. But if you do agree with me, one of the best ways that I'm hoping that we could be able to make a change here is just by talking about it on social media, bringing the attention to LEGO. Within the LEGO Ambassador Network, I have already made a post about it on the forum, kind of directly talking to the Bricklink team and saying, hey, can we maybe reconsider this before the change rolls out? Or could we maybe do even a community poll? Like, I love democracy. And if we did a community poll of whether we should make the change or not, and more people vote to make the change, then I love democracy. That change should be made. But I think at the very least, it'd be really cool of Bricklink to actually ask people first if they are okay with this change, if they want this change to happen before doing it, because I just really feel like it is a very community-built website, and the community should decide if big stuff like this should be changed. That's all for this video. I actually pushed out the video that was scheduled for today to a different date, just to be able to focus on this because I felt like this was a pretty important topic to cover. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and definitely let me know what you think of this. Down in the comments below, do you agree or disagree with my viewpoint? Do you agree or disagree with the change that Bricklink is making? And if you don't agree with the change, be kind in your communication, be nice about it, do not be mean to the Bricklink staff. They are working really hard and they're really great people, and I'm sure that they were just having the best intentions in mind when making this, but do voice your opinion about it. Go public and just talk about it on social media and make it clear if you do not want this change to happen, because that's the only way that we can maybe prevent this from happening. Just to wrap things up, Bricklink has actually addressed some of these questions, and to be completely honest, I don't really know how I feel about the way they've addressed them. First of all, these changes will come into effect on February 1st, so there's not a lot of time before these changes will happen. And to be honest, it sounds like they're pretty dedicated to them happening. I don't really know if we can even do anything, but it's worth trying and putting the word out. Basically, in the email they sent out to sellers, they said they see these variations as quote-unquote relatively unimportant and cumbersome from the viewpoint of the Bricklink marketplace. I don't think I agree with that, to be honest. I feel like they are actually kind of important, at least for a lot of them. Maybe not all of them, but for many of the changes being made, they are actual different types of pieces that are being done. So I probably would disagree with that. They also recommend that sellers do not make distinctions between them. So even if you want to physically and manually do it, they're telling you, please don't. So I feel like that's kind of the antithesis to what we're really trying to do in terms of actually getting these pieces separated out. They further did an FAQ where they said, are you dumbing down the Bricklink catalog? No, there are many variants that we do expect people to care about, but these ones don't really matter. And some of them, like the minifigure heads, actually cause problems. So the minifigure heads, whether there's like a hole at the top of the head or not, whatever, that's fine. Like, that doesn't really matter. that I actually am totally fine with them consolidating. It's basically everything else that I do care about. If you really care about a certain variant that's going away, can you still buy and sell it? You can add notes, but that really is on the onus of the seller to then just add it in the notes, and it makes it so much harder in wanted listings, because if you want to just buy like a ton of one particular piece, it's not really feasible to just search through random sellers' inventories to see if they happen to put it in the notes, so it's not really easy for the buyers to do that. And they also say that they may elect to remove other variants later, which makes me very worried that, like, if they decide to remove the variants of Bionicle hand sockets, those are actually significant changes, as I literally just discussed in our Why Does LEGO Not Just Remake Old Molds video that just came out, like, yesterday, so that's a pretty big change. And if you go over the Bricklink, there's a lot of discussion about this, and somewhat surprisingly, discussion seems to be kind of 50-50. Maybe there are more people aligned with my point of view, but there are a lot of sellers that really like this change, which as a seller I can understand because it makes it a lot easier to list things. But I definitely feel like they really should consider feedback and, again, just do a vote in terms of if this is possible or not before actually implementing the change in a few days. But we'll see what they say, and I hope that this video was at least helpful and educational in terms of the changes being made, and I guess get your orders in now if you really want one particular version of the variants, because they may no longer be listed in the future. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye for now.